Hi, everybody, and welcome to this session on meeting corporate cage-free egg pledges through impact incentives with Jayasimha Nuggehalli. I'm Bridget Williams, and I'll be the MC for this session. We'll be starting with an 18-minute talk by Jayasimha, and then we'll move on to a live Q&A session where he'll respond to some of your questions. You can submit questions using the box to the right-hand side of this video, and you can vote for questions to push them higher up in the list. Now I'd like to introduce our speaker for this session. Jayasimha Nuggehalli is the Chief Operating Officer of Global Food Partners, where he implements key initiatives to promote higher welfare production systems in the food sector. He also spearheads the development of innovative traceability and supply chain solutions for animal-sourced protein. Jayasimha has worked closely with egg farmers, governments, and industry stakeholders throughout India and Asia to drive the transition to higher welfare, cage-free egg production systems. Jayasimha is a former fellow at Harvard Law School, founding director of the Animal Law Center at NALSAR School University of Law in Hyderabad, and member of the Animal Welfare Board of India. Here's Jayasimha.
Hi, my name is Jayasimha, and I am one of the co-founders and the Chief Operating Officer for Global Food Partners. Today, I'm going to talk about Global Food Partners' work to accelerate cage-free egg production in Asia. Global Food Partners is a Singapore-based consulting company. We work with food businesses in the region to help them fulfill their cage-free commitments. What we really found in the region was that while food businesses had the commitments to go cage-free, there really wasn't a supply of cage-free eggs in the region at all. And when farmers wanted to go cage-free, they didn't have the needed technical support that would help with the transition. We also found that farmers who were willing to get, or rather change to cage-free egg production, did not have enough incentives to make the change. And Global Food Partners plans to work or is working on all of these places. A, by providing incentives to farmers that will help them go from cage to cage-free. B, provide the technical support that farmers require so that the transition is successful and cage-free egg production is seen as economically viable. And third most important thing, help companies report their progress to a various amount of stakeholders. How we work with companies on 3 stages. The first stage is the planning stage. And in the planning stage, we work with food businesses who are at different stages of their journey on implementing, or rather sometimes even developing, their animal welfare policies. So food businesses might come to us when they don't have an animal welfare policy at all, and then we work with them to help draft an animal welfare policy and sometimes even translate them to different languages. Once this is done, we then help with implementation. There could also be food businesses who their headquarters may be based in Europe or North America, already have a commitment and they're seeking support for planning and execution of this commitment in the region. And this planning support is extremely important, especially the language support and translation, because a lot of times the words that we presume that everybody would understand, not everybody understands. For example, while I was working in India, there was a really funny situation. There was a room full of egg producers, and a question was asked to them saying that how many of you confine your birds, or how many of you have battery cages in your farm? And we knew that all those farmers were actually battery caged, or rather cage farmers, but they all were like, well, we don't have any battery cages on our farms. And the person who was asking the question was a bit perplexed, only to realize that when the term battery cages was put to them, they were visualizing automated cages which require electric batteries to actually run them. So a lot of times a lot can be lost in translation, and hence planning and especially ensuring that the terminologies is translated becomes an extremely important aspect. Then comes implementation, where we provide technical support to egg farmers on cage-free egg production system. And the reason why technical support and the implementation support is important, again, is because about the lack of visual reference, right? The farmers in Asia, when you talk to them about cage-free egg production, they probably have 2 very distinct visual reference. The first one is going back to 1970s and 80s, where most of egg production was happening in what was called as deep litter system, which was inherently cage-free, but then it had its own negatives, and hence farmers actually moved away from deep litter system to cages. or they end up thinking of this really ultra modern European cage free or systems which require a huge amount of capital investment. And in both of these visualization, the response that we get from egg producers is like, well, it's not easy for us to implement this. And hence, providing technical support that makes sense to the Asian farmer is something that is very, very important. And also with relation to just terminologies, right? As in when you talk about cage free, a lot of the time farmers end up thinking that people are talking about organic, smallholder agriculture, where birds are probably in backyard in some sort of a village. So that just providing the technical support on what the visualization is, and then providing technical support so that they're able to run a successful farm. And the reason why running a successful farm and providing the technical support initially is extremely important, because farmers are coming with their own reservations into cage-free farming. And if for lack of technical support, there's an outbreak of disease or cannibalism or feather picking or things like that on a farm, they're going to paint the entire cage-free egg production that it's riddled with these problems, while it's not necessarily true. Hence, implementation and technical support is super important. We also provide support, and the support could be by establishing a training center, and this support can be of farmers or food businesses, and brands can actually send their own producers to come and get trained in a training center. And we've also tied up with other commodities and to provide a one-stop solution to brands to help provide incentives to farmers who are going cage-free through Impact Alliance. And in the next few slides, we'll talk more about our training center and Impact Alliance. Our training centers. While Europe was maybe 20, 30 years ago started to see the movement towards cage-free, there was also the academic knowledge that was built on cage-free egg production in Europe overall. And so we partnered with Aries, which is a Dutch-based university which specializes in cage-free egg production, to bring that knowledge to Asia, however localize them. We plan to have 2 training centers, one in Indonesia and second one in China. And the rationale was that when we spoke to farmers, we realized that there were a few very key barriers for transition. And the first one was just lack of knowledge on cage-free management overall. The second thing is they wanted to see a successful model, and hence we decided to set up a small model farm where farmers are able to come, get a feel about what the cage-free farms could look like. And this goes back to what I was speaking earlier about having a visual reference about how cage-free production is, and also kind of provide the veterinary extension support, or at least create capacity within the veterinarians so that they're able to support cage-free farmers. Again, Asia is, not all of Asia is same. In some parts of this region, there's actually no state capacity to provide veterinary extension at all. And in places where they do, what we end up seeing is that the veterinary extension capacity either supports really small backyard farmers, or the veterinarians in the private realm, or even sometimes even government veterinarians, are extremely inclined towards large scale caged operation. And for us, just building capacity of veterinarians itself so that there is an extension system that's available to support the egg farmers who are transitioning is extremely important. What will our cage-free system or cage-free training system model farm do? It will provide practical training in best practices in cage-free production and management. So farmers who come to our training center will get on-farm experience where they're able to touch the bird, get a feel of the bird overall. We are partnering with a local university. So in Indonesia, we've circled in on 2 local universities who could house these training centers. We're looking for a host university in China, and most importantly, the training will be conducted in local language. So what we are hoping is that the China training center will be used for the China and Greater China area overall, and the Indonesia training center could support the rest of the region, so which could be Malaysia, Thailand, and we will provide training in Bahasa Indonesia, Malay, Thai, so that farmers get information in the language that is easily understandable and digestible to them. We also, the model farm could also act as a research and development center on various other tools and techniques that is required, and which is more suitable for Asian way. The cohort that we are looking to train are producers, auditors, veterinarians, and other stakeholders. So this is overall our training center. We are really, really excited. Of course, with COVID, just traveling is becoming a bit of a problem. Hence, we are also trying to pivot with our training center overall, where we, till COVID situation kind of comes under control, the training will be provided through an online model. And we are also trying to innovate through some other technical innovations like having a 360-degree camera and farmers getting a feel through a VR headset on how cage-free farms look like. Now, this is on the production side. Of course, when producers go cage-free, they want incentives. And when we just looked at all the problems that exist as to which create the bottleneck for food businesses, we could like sum up onto a few of them, right? One was just that food businesses have no leverage. So in many other parts of the world, especially in, let's say, Europe or North America, when you have one big company making a commitment, because they're such huge in their consumption, they have a leverage to change how animal agriculture happens in that particular country. However, in Asia, most food businesses don't have that kind of leverage because food is consumed or rather sold, or eggs are sold in hot markets, in food stalls, street food and things like that. So organized food retail overall, be it as quick serve restaurants or hotels or retailers themselves, have a small piece of the entire slice. Hence, they don't necessarily have a leverage to get the food businesses to change their, or get the producers rather to change their method of production. The other problem that we saw was that there were few cage-free farms. However, the food businesses' demand was spread across a wide region, so a big cost was actually just transporting the eggs physically from the farm to that particular consumption location, and the cost of transport was very high, and the cost of just maintaining the identity of cage-free eggs were very high. And so we wanted to find a solution to this particular problem, where the food businesses are not necessarily tinkering into their existing supply chain. They are not necessarily, paying extra, sometimes 300%, in some markets 100% more than what a caged eggs would cost, just to feed these busybodies in the supply chain. And we started to have a discussion with other commodities, and we realized that all these other commodities also had similar problems in regions where the supply chain was really complex and there wasn't a leverage. And we came up with an Impact Alliance. The Impact Alliance consists of Global Food Partners, Textile Exchange, which works on leather and cotton, the Global Roundtable on Sustainable Beef, which works on beef, as well as Proterra, which works for soy and sugar, to see if we could create a one-stop solution for companies where they could come, look at animal welfare and other scopes such as zero deforestation and conversion-free products just for soy and things like that, and they're able to support farmers who have implemented them. And we feel that the Impact Alliance and the impact incentives play an extremely important tool to create that entire supply of cage-free eggs in the region. Overall, this is not a new concept. It's been used in palm oil for a long period of time. And as a matter of fact, electricity companies have used this for the longest time, right? When you call your grid asking them to supply renewable energy, it's not like a new line is drawn to your overall house. What they do is they start charging you a little bit extra, use that money to buy renewable energy credit. So we're using the same credit formula that has worked very well with other commodities such as palm oil and electricity, and bringing into other commodities, especially with cage-free eggs. I have a small video on Impact Alliance and how the impact incentives works. So as you see, the impact incentives are basically cage-free credits purchased to offset conventional egg usage. So if there's a food business that's buying caged eggs, they continue to just buy caged eggs and they buy cage-free credits to offset their overall conventional cage egg consumption. What happens on the farmer end is that the certified cage-free farmer will receive a premium for animal welfare practices. So they end up growing their hens, get the cage-free eggs, and overall just sell the eggs in the normal market as caged eggs itself. But then through impact incentives, they get the credit or receive the premium. And companies also have a way to work with us through impact partnership, where food businesses and the global food partners provide the training and infrastructure support. So in this particular place, the brands or food businesses have two options. One is that they could directly buy impact incentives in places where they already are available, or if they want to work with their own supply chains and own suppliers, they could work with global food partners with an impact partnership incentive, and through that partnership we can provide trainings and data collection and trading support and stuff like that, and companies are able to narrate a story of change. With impact incentives and the impact partnership incentives, along with the training centers, we are almost certain that we'll be able to make a marked difference in the overall production of cage-free eggs in the region. And brands now have these new tools to ensure that their commitments are actually fulfilled, and thus Global Food Partners is looking to partner with food businesses and farmers to make impact happen. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you so much for listening.
Hey, thanks so much for that talk, Jayasimha, and thanks so much for joining us here for this live Q&A session. Just a reminder, you can still submit questions to everyone at home. You can still submit questions in the chat box. But I have a couple of my own, so I might just kick off with one of those if that's okay. So I guess the work you're doing is more about improving the conditions of farmed animals. But I guess other people in the effective altruism space have taken the approach of trying to end factory farming and looking into, I guess, alternative protein sources as a method of getting there, and also other methods as well. What's motivated the approach to, I guess, focus on improving welfare of animals rather than trying to abolish factory farming?
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's a really important question. Obviously, there's been a growth, and I think Lewis's talk yesterday spoke about how there's been a growth of investment in alternate protein in the region overall, and in government as well as private funding. But when you really look at just new farms being established and intensive confinement of animals, it would be unlikely that there is going to be a marked difference in the number of animals confined in the near future. So in that sense itself, in the short term, we do believe that just getting these animals out of cages and crates and providing that welfare is really, really important. When one looks at media and like the pickup, it obviously seems that the animal agriculture is like not taking off as one would imagine. But then in reality, as we speak, there are like new cages and new crate facilities being built in the region. And it's extremely important that we kind of start working on bringing that much needed reform on the animals. And the other aspect is just focusing on getting these corporate commitments fulfilled is important, because we as a movement have invested time and resources getting all of these commitments. And this last mile of actually helping corporates to fulfill commitments not only leverages the entire value of getting the corporate commitments overall. So I guess that's one of the reasons why Global Food Partners focuses on trying to get these birds out of cages, and most importantly, incentivizing producers to have cage-free farms and making it easy for corporates to fulfill their commitments.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. What have you found have been the biggest barriers to getting corporates to, I guess, come on board with these commitments?
Right. So corporates have come on board with the commitments. I think the biggest barriers to implementation is that cage-free egg production is so nascent in the region. As in, though we are seeing big companies such as CP making the change, but it still caters to a small population, or maybe like even upwardly mobile or higher income people who are shopping in retailers. So to us, it seems that just trying to build capacity, and that's the reason why Global Food Partners is dedicated to establishing a training center in Indonesia, a training center in China, which has a model farm associated with it, delivering training to primary producers in local language. That could be Bahasa Indonesia, Thai, Malay, Chinese, so that there's a production, the production increases with building capacity of the producers. There is another problem is that when farmers oversimplify going cage free, the chances that there could be a disease outbreak or feather pecking or whatever, which can come in due to management issue, and that can let people to easily wash the entire cage-free agriculture as a practice to be problematic, while just having that good management practice is so important. And that's the reason why we're focusing on that, because those are the key barriers.
Yeah. I didn't realize that you're such a young organization. It's impressive how much you've been able to do so far, particularly given 2020 as well and the challenges that that's posed. What's next on the agenda for Global Food Partners? Do you think that this model can be translated to other areas of farmed animal welfare, or yeah, what are the plans?
Sure. I think from now to 2025, we're going to be focused on egg-laying hens and then maybe expanding to other species. But we're focused in Asia. That's where we really want to make the change happen. But I guess establishing the 2 training centers and then expanding the training centers in other parts of this region is probably where we want to focus, and just ensure that the commitment that the companies have made, the financial incentive reaches the farmers. And because that's finally the solution to all this gridlock that we are kind of stuck in between the producers and the consumers, and ensuring that the farmers get all sorts of financial benefits as well as other technical resources to do a smooth transition. I think continue focus on that aspect of work.
Okay. So we've really only got time for one more question, but I just thought I'd get your opinion on what effective or people engaged in effective altruism in the Asia Pacific region could be doing themselves on these sorts of issues.
Sure. So we see that there's a huge lack of resources in local language. So in the sense that while there are issues, for example, there was like a very funny instance in India, like there was a group of farmers and they were like, oh, well, you confine animals in battery cages. And literally they all were like, no, we don't confine animals in battery cages. But we knew for a fact that they all were using cages. But when it was translated in their mind, battery cages was a battery operated cage, which was like a mechanical cage of some sort. And they were like, well, we don't. So I guess like a lot of time, not localizing our expectation to local language is a problem. So I see like just the EA community across Asia, taking the resource that is there, translating it, making it relevant to the socio-economic and political conditions in that region, so that our expectation becomes reality. I guess that's one of the things that we can. And so if there's any EA who are listening who want to be more involved on just getting these resources in local language, we'd be happy to just work with them.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. But
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us, Jayasimha, and thanks everybody for joining us at home.
Thank you so much for having me.